Hey, good evening and welcome to DTV. It's television for Democrats, about Democrats, and by Democrats. I'm Greg McKay, and this evening our guests are Knoxville State Representatives Gloria Johnson and Sam McKenzie. Tonight we're going to talk about the recently adjourned special session of the Tennessee General Assembly and what it means for you and the rest of the citizens of the state. So, hey, let's start out with this. What is a special session and how is it called, and what kind of legislation can be considered? Either one of you can answer.
Well, the special session can be called either by the Senate and House, or it can be called by the governor. This one was called by the Senate and the House. And so it's just when we're typically in session January through April or May, but when something comes up that's important, we need to call a special session. We have that ability.
Yeah, and they actually call it an extraordinary session because our crafters viewed this as something that was going to happen every now and then, but the business should be done during regular session. I'm a freshman lawmaker. This is my third one this time. I actually considered proposing a change of name. So we just call it an ordinary session instead of an extraordinary session because it's come to be pretty commonplace.
Yeah, didn't we have one just recently for the Ford plant out in Memphis? And I guess I missed the other one. What was the other one?
The other one was it was earlier. It was for education.
Oh, okay. Now this one dealt strictly with COVID. Is that correct?
No.
No. Okay. Well, tell us what it was involved. I shouldn't. What was it involved? What was it about?
Well, it was told to the people that it was about COVID. And that a lot of people that were concerned about mask mandates and vaccine mandates, which some of us like because we believe in science, it was supposedly called for that purpose. However, we ended up talking about school board elections and appointed attorneys and things that had nothing to do with COVID, that were just more retaliatory than anything else.
Well, that's unfortunate to hear that. I'm with you. I agree in science. I got my shots. I couldn't wait to get them. And I'm glad, I'm glad that we had the scientists that came up with the vaccines that maybe we'll be able to stop this thing. So I saw where they passed a law. Personally, I'm against it, where they return the school boards back to partisanship. Huh? Is that been passed? Is that going to happen?
Well, unfortunately, yes, it did pass at this special session. There are some hooks in it. It's kind of just a dumb bill. To be quite honest, if anything should be nonpartisan, should be singularly focused, it should be our school boards. I mean, at the end of the day, whether you're Republican or a Democrat, educating our children should be something that we can agree on. Now, as a legislature, we can agree on our funding formulas. We can argue that back in partisan ways. But at the local level, we should have a school boards that are just focused on education. So, but right now, if you have a school board member that may be leaning Republican, but he or she wants to increase the taxes or ask county commission to increase taxes because we need other buildings, because we need additional resources, they're not going to do that because, that's just a taboo thing to do within the Republican Party. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on them. They're going to have to start dealing with the Republican clubs and the Democratic clubs for that matter. And it really should just be about what does it take to make our schools run well. It's something that's it puts people in camps that really shouldn't be that way. And it's even stranger, and I hate that you can get lost in the weeds. The parties have to agree to allow for it to be a partisan race. So we could theoretically have the Republican Party saying, yes, we want a partisan race, and they run in the primary. The Democratic Party could say, no, we don't want a primary. We want to keep it nonpartisan or not. We don't want to have a Democratic primary. So you can have, a myriad of people running in the primary, and then you have, I guess, what they would consider a nonpartisan or independent person. I don't know what they would call him or her, running against a Republican candidate. So who knows what's going to happen. They're going to do it. 95 counties are going to probably do it a tad bit differently. So we'll just see what happens at the end of that.
And
well, that's going to be interesting. I'm sorry, Gloria, go ahead.
Well, I just had to say it's kind of funny that some of the bills we passed was because they wanted to be uniform across the state. Well, this creates something that's absolutely not uniform across the state. And at a time when our school board meetings are so contentious across the state right now, to add partisanship to those races, to me, once again, they're just bringing adult fights to the schoolhouse door that we don't need. It's not helping educate our children. It is not going to help educate our kids. And so it doesn't make sense that we're doing it.
Gloria, that's an excellent point. Sam, you too, talking about how it's going to put people back into camps. And I understand that some of the bills they put into place, you're concerned that they may affect our ability to get funding through the American Rescue Plan. Do you think that could be a problem?
It's definitely a potential when it comes to, we're expecting OSHA regulations to come down, how we're going to deal with those, what's happening in business and businesses that get federal funding. I think we have created some confusion that could get some folks in trouble. What about you, Sam?
I agree. It's confusing at best. And I do think, working in a place like Oak Ridge, there was a lot of conversations about that. And we need to understand that we have a federal government that is an umbrella over the states. We are United States, but we are, independent, but we're part of the U.S. And so as these funds come through, and we get a lot of funds from our friends in Washington, D.C., that folks like to throw rocks at. And so if we're making it confusing for whether, they can or cannot have a mask mandate, it just doesn't seem to be healthy or good for any business. This to me is just a bad for business bill.
And we heard that from businesses. Friday morning when we go to the floor, we're supposed to 9 o'clock. Sam and I are just kind of roaming around because nobody's starting. And we find out they heard from a lot of businesses early that morning, late the night before, who said, we are not okay with this. And Ford seriously was not okay with it. These businesses want to keep their employees healthy. That's important to them. It should be important to all of us. And so a lot of the things they had planned, they walked them back for business.
Yeah, I had heard that you probably know more about what you were saying, that the Ford plant was potentially, it could mess up that deal because they were concerned about this law.
And just to hear some of the vitriol and the rhetoric coming from some of the more conservative, both people in the state and legislatures, saying, well, Ford doesn't represent our values, send Ford back, send them packing. Like, do you understand how desperate rural West Tennessee is for something? If you look at the population shifts out of rural West Tennessee, they need this. We need this for them, but they need this to survive. And so I just don't understand it.
Absolutely. And the thing that is so amazing to me is we're talking about typically a line job is $18 an hour. A Ford line job is $32 an hour. Right. Typical Tennessee salary is $32,000 a year. Typical Ford salary is $92,000 a year. This is going to be huge for Tennessee families, just really big. It's time that folks in Tennessee see what union labor can do in increasing everything from productivity and health on the job and salaries and benefits. Tennesseans need to see that in action.
You used the U word, Gloria.
I sure did.
Union. Oh, heavens, you'll drive people crazy with that. Personally, I think that's one of the problems we've got now with our middle class eroding is the lack of collective bargaining. You just can't collective bargain anymore. You got to take whatever job. Until the pandemic came, you had to take whatever job you could. And if you didn't like it, too bad. But anyway, hey, let me mention something else too. I see where the law, the bill, I understand that it gave the governor power over the rulings of the local county health boards. Now, I don't know about you two, but if I felt sick, I wouldn't go ask Bill Lee about it. I'd go ask my doctor. But is that true? What do you feel about that?
You don't go to your HVAC guy?
And they kept making the point. I was actually on that committee that we have 6 counties that do it differently than the other 89 counties. But what they don't get is...
But it's local, yeah.
It's local, and those are the high density urban counties.
Right.
They have to do it separately from that. And and they threw out numbers like, well, their numbers or their rates are the same as these rural county rates. But what I'm saying is that's the beauty of it all, to have a place that is as dense as a Knoxville or Chattanooga or Memphis or Nashville. They had to do it differently than in Maury County or in Hawkins County, because we interact in a lot closer way. So we needed that autonomy. But as you said, this bill basically gives the governor's appointee pretty much who knows very little about health. So we're going to take it away from the professionals and give it to these politicians.
Politicians, right?
And they said, I want people that I can vote on making these decisions. No, I don't want someone that I can vote on to have surgery on my heart. I'm sorry, I just don't want that. I want to leave it to the experts.
No, I agree. I agree with you. Yeah. Go ahead, Gloria. You got some more?
Yeah, I just wish that people could watch some of the floor argument, because the floor argument on that was so good, because Mike Stewart did a lot of that, and he pointed, name one metric where Davidson County did worse than any other county of the state. What is your explanation for making us all the same and giving the governor control? Because nobody had better metrics, and they couldn't pinpoint one single metric where Davidson didn't do better because of the mitigation they had in place. They just couldn't do it. And so, their argument was so empty, but they all still voted for it.
Isn't it the party that's always pushed, don't let people in Washington or Nashville tell us what to do here locally? But when it came to health measures, because Sam, you had a good point. The pandemic is a local problem. If it's raging in China, that's too bad. But right here is where we have to deal with in our own family, in our own lives.
There's a couple more things I think we should hit. One of the things we haven't talked about, I think is so critical, is the fact that they give private schools the right to require masks, but not public schools. So they're creating 2 classes of Tennessee families. If you go to a private school, the private school can require masks, but public schools cannot, unless they get over some insane metric that we're rarely going to hit, hopefully, and then only for a certain number of days. But private schools can have as many masks as they want.
So just to be clear, this bill, it has not become law yet, right?
It has not, and that's a very good point. The governor can veto this bill. He has that ability. He can do 3 things. He can sign on to these bills, or all of them. He can veto them, or he can just let it sit on his desk and it will become law without his signature. But he can veto these bills, and he said he issued a statement saying that he's considering it. He really, in my opinion, if he's about what's best for businesses, for the citizens, for government, and for local control, he needs to take a real good look at this, at these bills, and veto at least 4 of the 6 of them. He really should do that, and his veto just means that it'll come back to us. So we will then have to have another session to vote. So that's just saying, you know, that he doesn't agree with these. So hopefully he's getting some pressure, some guidance, some wisdom from some people a lot smarter than all of us, and he's going to do the right thing.
I know he's hearing from a lot of doctors.
Is that right? Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So if he signs it, then the mask mandate for Knox County students is gone. Is that correct?
No, because they're under a federal judge's rule. They can't trump a federal judge's rule.
And that's the bad part of this, or the horrible part of this. You know, our colleague from Farragut, you know, that's the ultimate goal, is to bypass the process. And we talk about the Constitution, but the Constitution lays out 3 branches of government. And he's really trying to bypass the judicial branch because they issued a ruling that he doesn't like, or several people don't like. That's not the process. We have these, you know, executive, legislative, and judicial branches for a reason. If we love this Constitution, which I do, we have to love it all. We can't talk about, you know, individual rights and Trump's another part of the Constitution. It's a living document. And so, in my opinion, just like Gloria said, we need to let the process play itself out. There's a federal order that they're under. If it's overturned, so be it. But no, that's not going to affect Knox County until this plays out at the federal level.
And that's really where the retaliation piece comes in, because the whole reason some of those folks wanted to go to special session was to overturn those 3 judges' rulings in East, Middle, and West Tennessee. There's no question that's what they were wanting to do. In addition, they wanted to retaliate against district attorneys because a certain district attorney in Davidson County said he doesn't want to prosecute every petty marijuana crime, and that he's not going to do that. And so they passed legislation that said if a DA won't prosecute a particular crime, they can appoint a DA to do that. And, you know, it's going to be expensive. And the way the bill is written, they could appoint Rudy Giuliani. They don't even have to be from our state, the way it's written, to come in there. And then every time, like, say that they also didn't want to prosecute something else, that would be a different district attorney. It takes away prosecutorial discretion from our DAs, and only have a finite amount of money for each year for the DA to prosecute cases and to pay everybody. And we've got to choose the cases that are put folks in danger, you know? And so to take away that prosecutorial discretion because you don't like what one DA does, you know, it's very questionable.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's petty retaliation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it just from if you look at what this DA in Nashville said, it's just the merits of what he said. He's saying that I don't want to fill my jails up with these small amounts of marijuana, which in a lot of states is legal. And, you know, and it's probably, unfortunately, you know, it's done in our state. But we have a governor that's running under criminal justice reform, under trying to eliminate a lot of these, you know, nonviolent crimes on one side. And he has a lot of people in the legislature behind him. That's what they're saying. But they're getting mad at a judge basically saying, I don't want to waste my time, the court's time, these individuals' time with these small amounts of offenses. So if they're really about reforming the way we do a crime and punishment in the state of Tennessee, they would call this DA, in my opinion, he's doing something that makes sense.
Yeah, and you know, one of the other things not to forget, because it's more important in Nashville maybe, but it's really important in Knoxville. We have a lot of great music venues, and one of the things that they did also allow in this bill was they allowed the music venues to continue to require vaccines and tests for entry into those events. So
this is the state bill.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So that was
at one time, the original language had them not be able to require masks and say the Bijou or places like that.
And then of course, prisons, jails, and airports and those can also require masks. So.
Okay. Well, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
It's just I don't understand that. I was not aware of that. What you were telling me about the district attorney. That's I just don't think you should use legislation to try to get back at people, retribution.
Right.
Use the legislative process to make things better, not to punish people, unless it's criminal stuff, But anyway, that's just my opinion. But I really, yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say what a great job you guys are doing. You must have the patience of Job. I don't see how you don't have an ulcer or jumping out the window or just some of the stuff we hear coming out of Nashville. It's just amazing. And some of the attitudes, it's the attitude of trying to hurt people. It seems like of retribution, of being mad and upset about everything. I just don't understand it, but I commend you for the job that you're doing. And sometimes I almost wish I was down there with you, but boy, I tell you,
we wish you were there.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Oh man, what a mess.
Sam and I both find our eyes almost getting stuck as we're rolling our eyes as we sit on the floor. Disbelief at some of the things that they said. I mean, there was one rant on a resolution we had that was calling for sedition. I don't know why people didn't call it out, but it absolutely called for sedition. And in addition, called me and you and Sam dumb, emotional mongrels.
Mm-hmm.
Just unbelievable, the vitriol.
I know. Just the lack of respect for others, and I don't get it myself. I wish we could all just calm down,
It would be good.
Of course, my wife calls me the Rodney King of Knoxville politics. Why can't we all just get along, But anyway, I admire the two of you for doing it. But let me ask you this: what can we do? I mean, I think I agree with you. I think the governor needs to veto at least 4 of these bills. What can we as citizens do about it? Is there anything?
Absolutely. Make that call to the governor, asking him to veto these bills. There's a Protect My Care petition going around that you can sign that some of the doctors have put out. You don't have to be a doctor to sign it, but a lot of doctors have signed it. And everybody is calling and asking the governor, signing the petitions to call on the governor to veto all of those things. So it's, some people feel like it's a long shot, but you know what? If there's a tiny chance, it's worth that shot. We might find out some of these things are going to be big lawsuits. And because we should never pass things so quickly in 72 hours or less.
Right.
You can't really do a good job vetting legislation in that amount of time. When we were sitting there at 1:30 in the morning and the big omnibus bill had gone back and forth, and they finally okay, we finally have an agreement. We're ready to go. So we come in thinking we're going to vote. And then the speaker goes, we've got a typo. But it wasn't a typo. They had messed up part of it. The folks from a certain university were upset because they had messed something up, and then they had to go back and correct it. But what do you expect at 1:30 in the morning? As I get out at 1:30 in the morning I'm sorry, but most of my colleagues are probably in a recliner by 6. And we're sitting there at 1:30. It wouldn't work. I'm just not sure they were up to the job.
Yeah,
no, that's a good point.
That's a very good point.
Go ahead.
Very good point. No. It just as Gloria said, he separated us into committees, and we immediately went to work on the legislation. And so no one had read, in 15 to 30 minutes, the bill, but you're expected to ask intelligent questions on it and vet it, hopefully change it, hopefully vote it up or down, and do it right, but do it that quickly. So this was just a hastily put together session. We had heard that the lieutenant governor was not going to do one. I felt real good about that, but I guess pressure forced this situation, and here we are.
Did you ask, Sam? Did you? I might have gotten this wrong. Did you ask for a little bit of time to read those bills before we went into committee?
Right. There was myself, and then someone else asked a lot more eloquently than I. But he said, "Well, they've been around since yesterday." So, but we didn't know what committee we were on. But
right, and one of the committees had 41 bills. I was lucky; mine had 3. I think yours had a low number too.
Yeah.
However, we could have been on the 41 bill committee, and even though I did go through them the night before, I didn't do a thorough vetting like I was going to vote on them the next day. So I would have liked more time for sure. They could have given us at that point easily, because we went home. Thursday we went home pretty early, right? I mean,
we did.
So we could have actually taken a little more time.
I remember too, when I was in the election office, I used to sometimes have to read a law 3 or 4 times before I even understood what they were saying. You don't want to be in a hurry with these things. You guys are right. So, anything else real quick? We're about out of time.
Well, I just want to ask everyone, be excited about those city council elections that just happened last night, and congratulations to Sam's better half.
Absolutely. Congratulations.
For her
we whooped them.
That's right. Double digits. That was really exciting to know, because they worked hard, but the opponents, they weren't easy targets, and they didn't just sit there, but our guys really sent a message, and gals.
Well, I think the voters did too. They don't like partisan politics in city elections. They don't like people from the county coming into the city elections and telling us what to do. And they pay attention. City voters, there aren't a lot of city voters, but they pay attention, and I'm proud of them.
That's right.
Oh, so, and they care about important issues for sure. That's great.
Yeah, it is good. Well, anyway, okay. I think we're about out of time. I'm not sure.
I think we are.
Our time is up. 30 seconds. Our time is up for tonight. We want to thank Gloria and Sam for our discussion and for telling us what's going on at this special session. And we want to thank you, and be sure and tune in next Friday night at 9:30. And this is Greg McKay thanking you for watching DTV.